I thought I could get away with doing some casual, normal live videos and still getting the same reach, same view counts as those of Jonathan Grace from Blackstone. But after today's experiment, no, I still don't get as many views. And also I have people reach out to me, thank me for the videos, the content I share on M&A. So I'm back to doing informational content. Today on the topic of mergers and acquisitions, I want to focus on an aspect of the process where there is often a lot of friction, and that's working capital. First of all, for those of you who don't know what working capital means, textbook definition of working capital is current assets minus current liabilities. All right, so your current assets, those that can be converted into cash within 12 months. Current liabilities are those bills, expenses that will fall due or payable within the next 12 months, right? So that's a textbook definition of working capital, current assets minus current liabilities. Usually when you're at that phase where you are about to enter into not a purchase agreement, a sale contract is way down, way towards the end. That's when you sign a sales contract. But just to get a foot in the door with let's say you're a buyer, you're evaluating this business for the purpose of buying it. And so you're the buyer, you're at this phase where you need to give the other party, the seller, show them enough commitment that you are serious about this process, and therefore you're willing to sign what we refer to as a term sheet. It's a non-binding term sheet. When you at this phase of drafting the term sheet, you want to define your stand on working capital without making it too complex that you scare the seller who is not sophisticated. You scare them away with too complicated language around working capital, right? So the key here is to strike that balance between making sure that the topic of working capital will be discussed at a later stage during due diligence without specifying too much details that you will scare the seller away. They don't want to deal with it, too complex. Especially in the small, medium-sized businesses, the business owners are not that, they haven't done this a lot of times, they don't have experience in doing this, and they might not even understand what you mean by working capital. Yeah, so you don't want to complicate it. You want to specify it, but you do not want to overly complicate it. All right, now that you know how you should approach that topic, the next thing I want to explain is the level of working capital. Some buyers don't seem to discuss the working capital they need for the business. But the best analogy for why you need working capital, think about buying a car. When you go and buy a car, let's say it's secondhand, but you agreed the price of $20,000 for the car. When you go and pick it up, the seller would always leave some petrol in the car so that you can drive back home. Nice sellers would leave full tank of petrol in the car for you, right? Some others maybe leave half or quarter. Petrol is valuable, right? It's money, because otherwise you have to pay to get it. So as a buyer, of course you want more of that petrol. The more the merrier. And as a seller, you can't just sell the car and leave petrol on empty, right? It's the same way with a business. As a seller, you don't want to leave too much. That's money to you, right? But you want to leave enough so that they can find their feet, so to speak, once they take over your business, right? That's just industry standard, industry practice. And so as a buyer, as a seller, both of you want to, eventually agree on the amount of working capital that is right for the type of business you're looking at. Usually the friction, the disagreement won't come up in the initial phase when you send through the term sheet. It's because it's very generic, the language is very generic around working capital. Ideally, you want to agree from the get-go what sort of working capital is the right amount of working capital for the business. Agree on the method of calculating it, agree on the timelines. But as I mentioned earlier, sometimes that can complicate the process, because if the other side doesn't understand all these calculations, the seller, they don't understand all these calculations, you introduce something they don't understand into the process, which would require them to be working with some accountant, involved with different parties too early. And before you know it, you might lose them entirely. So you want to strike a balance between these two things, enough language in there to protect you without making it too complicated. And yes, ideally, in a perfect world where everyone understands, like in the world of professional investors, private equity, the buyers and the sellers understand these methodologies and these industry practices. So there's not as much friction for them on that topic. But in the small, medium-sized businesses, these things can sometimes hinder your progress towards getting any further than those initial meetings. Working capital is usually one of the friction points in the acquisition process. And as a buyer, you want to strike a balance between incorporating the language around working capital so that it will protect you later on, but at the same time not making it overly complicated that scare the non-sophisticated sellers away. Similarly, if you are a seller, you need to understand what the normal level of working capital your business requires, right, to operate normally without disruption. Your view might be different from the buyer's view, but if you know your business well, you can use that knowledge to negotiate professionally with the sellers.
Sorry, I meant buyers.
All right, so that's all I want to share with you today. I hope that was helpful. I know I just talked out of my knowledge without scripting it, so it might sound a little bit all over the place, but I hope you found some value in this video. If you do find value in this video, please give me a thumbs up, comment, share if it makes sense for you to do so. Alrighty, thanks for your time and see you in the next video. Bye.